While therapists are often seen as superheroes, we know that they are in fact human and need rest just like anyone else. The healers need healing too. That's why we're hosting Camp Loveland, a wellness retreat exclusively for BIPOC therapists. The goal of Camp Loveland is to help prevent burnout among BIPOC therapists by providing them with a rejuvenating experience that is full of unapologetic joy. Can you make someone a happy camper by donating to Camp Loveland? Visit thelovelandfoundation.org/donate. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Unfolding. I'm your host, Rachel Keener, and today we are joined by Leah Thomas, also known as Green Girl Leah, also an environmental icon, an all-around amazing human. So thank you, Leah. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. You also very ethereal person. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. No, I'm just happy to have you on the show. I remember we met about a year ago, and I remember seeing you, I'm just like, wow, she just has such a glow about her, and I just wanted to know more about you. And then I learned more about you. I was like, that makes sense. She cares so much about people and the world and the environment, and she's just out here really just doing the work. And I just wanted to be in conversation with you, especially as we're wrapping up like April and celebrating Earth Day, but also just like in the state of the world we're in right now. I feel like sustainability and also just like climate is such a I'm seeing so much like intertwines between mental health and well-being and also climate that I've never seen before. And also being like this mental health space, people are asking like how we can be more sustainable and how we can be more like environmentally conscious while also taking care of our conscious and like our mental well-being. So I figured like, let's just talk to Leah about this. I feel like she'll have some great insight.
So thank you.
Course. So I wanted to start this off because I was just curious, like, what was your earliest memory of like being in nature? Like, what made you fall in love with the environment and the world?
Oh, I mean, I lived in Florissant, Missouri most of my life, which is, the suburbs of Missouri or St. Louis. But suburbs in St. Louis, since we're in Missouri, it's like there's a farm up the street, there's like wheat fields and passing. And, my backyard was a sanctuary for me. I was always running around. Like we had toads or, bunnies move in and burrow underground. We had cats, we had, fireflies and those sorts of things. And my parents really let my sister and I just like run the streets. So we were just like outside and we were little hustlers. We had like lemonade stands all the time. We were always like thinking of ideas, like turning our backyard into like a mud themed water park after we got like a mini slide. So it really just felt inherent to my upbringing. I never really camped. Like one time we went in a cabin, but that was pretty much it. But
Yeah,
I would say that was kind of an outdoor upbringing. I was running around outside.
just being outside. I remember like as a kid, like I would always be like wanting to find water and be in the water and play in the water. And my parents would just be like, Rachel, please stop jumping these puddles. Like, please get
Oh,
like, just having so much fun.
okay.
And like, I think there's this like, I feel like children have this like view of the world that seems so pure and genuine. I remember like learning about like the environment as a kid. And, like you're taught the basics of like reduce, reuse, and recycle. And then like you kind of just like stop at that point. Like there's no like action after that or no like there's kind of just like those basics. You're just like, okay, yeah, I'll throw away this like plastic bottle, but like we don't think about like the other implications that like happen. So I'm wondering, like, when did you like become more conscious about how like the environment, like, and like what role you play in the environment and contributing to like having like more environmental friendly like practices?
I would say not until college, probably. I went natural my first year in school, so I like did a mini chop and just started going back to that. So I feel like natural hair was the pathway to sustainability.
Oh,
Unlike some other people that are just like radicalized by like a whale film, I was like, oh, that's what they put in
we
relax.
chop.
Oh, chemicals. Yeah, and then I was working for Kimberly Elise, who is an incredible actress. She's in the movie. Yeah, I love Kimberly. I always have to be like, for the younger people, I'm like, have you seen the movie Dope? Like, she is in the movie Dope.
That's off. There's like
Pan, the hot
huge.
pan.
I love Julia Lisa.
So it was wild. It all centers around black hair, but she used to have like a natural hair and living website. I met a hairstylist who was like, "Oh, yeah, my friend's starting this website." So I started blogging for her when I was younger. And then I realized, like, oh, I'm learning so much. I would love to share even more with my community. And I started studying environmental science. But it never felt that intentional. Like, I guess it was, but I just happened to be learning about it and I thought it was really cool. But it was by way of natural hair.
I think that's perfect because a lot of times, and I know, obviously as an intersectional environmentalist, but people often exclude Black people out of the conversation about environment, especially like Black women. And the fact that what started you on your natural environmental journey was hair. And something that's such a topic for Black women is like what we do with our hair, how we shape our hair, the products we use on our hair, and just that like way of doing that. And like the way that like there's so many ways that the environment is connected to how we live and how we show up. Like recently I saw like this as someone who like braids their hair, I saw that there's like a new like plant fiber hair for like Black women. And I was like so excited by that. I was like something I do every day, something that like my family and members do, like do with their hair. Like I never realized like can have an impact on like our health and also like the environment as well. I'm like, oh yeah, where does this come from? Like what am I using? Like how's this impacting me? So I think that's something that's so beautiful about the intersectionality of it. So like what have you seen when you like what made you kind of like coin the term then, like the intersectional environmentalist? Like, how did you get to that place?
Yeah, I mean, my environmental advocacy has so much to do with my identity as a Black woman. I can't really stress that enough. So it's funny because I feel like sometimes Black women will just be doing stuff and then there's a word for it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like my grandma gardens pretty much organically or, saves her plastic bags and mends things, but never would she say she was an environmentalist. It's just kind of like how she is. So for me, Black feminist theory, again, I stumbled across intersectional feminism when I was in college. I tried to get involved with like women's rights movements and was like, what is this? Where are the Black women? Like,
Where are the Black people, please?
I mean, I was like, "Oh, you got the hats out?" Like, that is not what
Why
I
does that belong here?
yeah. But I went to school in Orange County, so, like, that makes total sense. And then I stumbled across intersectionality because I was like, "There's something strange going on in this other version of feminism that doesn't seem to consider the experiences of women of color or trans women or whatever it is, and I don't feel safe." And it felt weird to be like, "I'm a woman, but I don't feel safe in this space for women." And when I stumbled across intersectional theory and Black feminist theory about, the intertwining and interlocking of our identities and how it shapes our womanhood, I just felt so safe finally in feminist spaces. And I wanted the same with environmentalism as well. I wanted to be an intersectional environmentalist because similar experience in some environmental spaces being like, what's going on? Are we going to make sure Flint has no bed? Oh, yeah.
Speaking, no, that
Mhm.
I went to a predominantly white school in Santa Clara, and I remember like doing like these like social justice causes or trying to like get involved in it's called like the adventure club or something like that where like you go outside and like be in the environment and like there's already so limited like Black people and other people of color at the school, but when I tried to do these clubs it felt like it was clear that like I was outside and like I was outcast and like I wasn't meant to be in those spaces. And there's something about feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling like included and welcome that really make you feel like, oh, like I belong here. And I think especially with the talk around like environmentalism and like sustainability, like you said, like your grandmother like was doing sustainability before like it was even a word, like I remember my grandma, like, we could never throw away anything that wasn't all like completely done. And if it was done, you put something back in it and you use it again until it's like already like I remember she would keep like salad dress bottles and then she'll like mix it up with like some water to like extend it. And I'm just like, okay, like, the flavor was interesting, but we loved it, or like making sure that like we use all of our resources and seeing like how this framework came from like survivalist almost, like just trying to make the best of like everything you have, but how that came into play, like extending the life of something and making sure you got full use of something. I think that's something that like it's just now being like seen as like cool or like environmentally. But like I think when you exclude people who've been doing things for centuries in a certain way from these environmental conversations, it could create such a disconnect and such a like a rift between like how are we taking care of the environment, how are we taking care of the world, and like when you outcast a group of people who've been doing it for so long, especially like indigenous cultures, it really you're like missing out on so many like wealth of knowledge of like how to be a better environmentalist. So I think like including people in this space is such a cool way to like really make it more accessible because like there's tips and tricks that people have that's been using for like centuries and decades of just like how to be a better like environmental person. So yeah. Okay, let me know if this is how you say it. Is it eco communicator or echo?
Oh, yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect. Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
So I really like making up words, they
I'm
don't
noticing, and
it's a
I'm learning.
trend.
Yeah,
It's a
what
trend.
heard of you.
If it doesn't exist, make it. It really just means like, I wanted to be a communications major, but I studied environmental science instead. But I found it to be really inaccessible as a field. A lot of environmental media, documentaries, podcasts, books are really written for people with an intense background in environmental science. So
Yeah.
I wanted to communicate environmentalism in a way that was accessible, had cultural competency, and was relatable and fun.
Okay, so echo communicator, so that's how you describe yourself. As a comms major, that makes a lot of sense, and, like, seeing how that like, the 2 worlds kinda collide, and do you see that there's any type of, like, difference in, like, how you communicate? Like, like, communicating with people, like, is there ways to, like, bring that language in a way that's more accessible and understandable for people? Because like, a lot of times people use these words that are, like, really hard to understand or really hard to, like, grasp concepts of, but, like, it's really, like it could be so much more simple in a way. So, like, have you been able to do that in environmental spaces and, like, translate almost or be, like, this interpreter for people to be like, "Here's what's really going on."
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes ego can infiltrate academia at times where they're like, well, if you don't know what this theory means, like, you just don't deserve to know it. And for environmental science, sorry,
Low.
and with environmental science in particular, I'm like, isn't the goal to make sure everybody
Yeah.
can have a clean, healthy planet? So I think they should understand what's going on. So even with intersectional environmentalism, I always make sure people know where intersectionality came from, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw and Black feminist theory. But you can say the same thing in another way. Like intersectional environmentalism at its core is making sure you protect people and the planet. Period. So I think it's more fun to say, as long as I can get the message out there, I think words can be a barrier for some people for various reasons. They might feel triggered by a certain word or they don't gravitate or they don't fully believe. But I don't know how many times, especially when we're talking about like non POC, sometimes I'm like, okay, fine. You want to talk about wealth inequality? We'll talk about wealth inequality. And by the end of it, they're like, oh, so this is happening to Black and brown folks more. But it's like having to start in one place that they might feel more comfortable with to get to this place over here. And it can be exhausting. I don't always opt in, but I feel like, got to get triggered by
Yeah.
it.
I could really imagine how exhausting that could be. But I think there's something so beautiful about how, like, the inclusion of the aspect of the work you do and, like, how I've never really seen brown girls, like, leading the space in that way, and, like, a lot of times, like, you have, like, your Gretas or, people who are able to, like, appeal to more people and, like, to take their words for it, which, like, love the message, love the theme, but I really, like representation truly does matter, and seeing that in everyone and, like, you talk a lot about in your book how, like, racial injustice is so linked to environmental injustice, and, like, we see it in, like, red line areas, and we see it in, like, environmental crisis, like Flint, Michigan, still not having clean water, or we see it after like we have, especially like even like the LA fires, like Black neighborhoods were the ones that were deeply impacted by that, or like in like past like environmental disasters, like with like Hurricane Katrina, like we see that like it's really the brown and Black places that are deeply, deeply impacted by it, and it's like we see them still recovering years and years later, and like leaving them out of that conversation could be so detrimental of that because it kind of just keeps tying back into, like, the injustice of, like, okay, well, bad to the environment, bad to the people, and then, like, not the lack of, like, education, the lack of, like, spreading information and, like, awareness about it. So, like, in your, like, lane of activism, where do you find yourself with, like, how you navigate being a Black woman in this field, but also, like, speaking up for your community and, like, while also protecting your mental health?
Yeah, I mean, part of this, because I've been doing it for a couple years, I just don't like, I opt out of certain situations where I'm like, "This is not my ministry. This is not my calling."
Yeah.
Certain conversations or spaces or, there's always somebody who has, like, a certain question that they think will, like, stoop me up or trick me. I remember I was, speaking at a school, and there was a student that came up to me at the end of the line and was like, "Well, I heard you said Ferguson is what inspired you to get involved, but did you read the DOJ report on the da 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 page 15?" And I was like, "Security?"
Wow, I engage with that.
Yeah, I really don't have the time. But no, I mean, honestly, I think it's just picking my battles, and not everybody can do that. So I understand there's a certain degree of privilege that comes with that. Um, and then, yeah, just understanding like, this is my message. I'm open to feedback. This is what I know to be true. I think also backing everything that I'm saying in data is also important. So if someone wants to fight with science, it's like, okay, we're just not on the same page. Like, I believe in science and facts. And it is true that, formerly redlined communities in this country experienced more environmental hazards. And it is 100% true that Black folks do. So, I just try to pick my battles, and it's hard.
No, I love that phrase of opting out, like, truly opt out, like, especially, like, I think there's a lot of pressure for especially Black women to clean up messes that aren't made by them and, like, aren't, like, created by them, and there's this pressure of, like, having to be, like, this, like, superwoman of, like, holding everything together while holding yourself together and, like, taking care of so many things at once, and it's
Mhm.
really, really detrimental to mental health and mental well-being. So, I love that phrase of opting out, and I will be using that, so thank you.
Sure. I think just to add on to that a little bit, I speak pretty candidly when I'm talking to, the Black community of like, this is a crisis that we did not create. So
Yeah.
my advocacy is not filled with the same amount of guilt that I feel like non-Black people's advocacy might be filled with. Mine is like, this is another oppressive system that we did not create that we are dealing with. So I really want to encourage Black folks to like hold that to be true. And we don't have to be saviors. We can participate, but I feel like the way we participate is really rooted in community care, like, setting up community gardens, making sure everybody's fed, setting up like water distribution if we need to. So I feel like our environmental activism will be inherently different. It's not like this scary, the world is ending, because for us, it's like, I'm African American, so we've endured so, so much throughout
Yep.
the span of history. So, like, to fear a crisis that we did not even create and to lose sleep over it, I'm like, I don't want that for any Black person at all.
Wow, I carry that burden, carry that weight. No,
No.
I don't want that. No, this I love what you said about community care. I At the foundation, we're really focusing on what healing in community looks like and, like, knowing that you don't have to do things alone and knowing that you don't have to feel this level of isolation. I think we start the year off and, like, we were reading, like, the Surgeon General's warning of, like, we're in the epidemic of, like, loneliness and, like, feeling, like, very isolated, and that's gonna have a deep impact on people's mental health and the worst of ways, and, like, just finding ways to be in community will be healing in so many different capacities, and so I'm just curious, how have you seen community, like, like, show up for you in the ways of, like, the environment, but also just, like, in the ways of just, like, having joy and, like, having, like, fun? Like, how are you able to connect to your community? How are you building community?
Yeah, so I just started a crafting club. It's actually, going to start first week of May. So
Hey, crafting club?
yeah, with the state of the world, it's so wild, but I started crafting as soon as I found out those election results. I was like, "Well,
Don't know what you're talking about.
where's the hot glue gun?" Like, I don't know. Just like, we gotta do something. But I started, crafting, and it really is just it's like an active meditation,
Mm.
finding a moment of mindfulness and I just put an idea out on Threads, like, does anyone want to come to a park and do crafts together? And like thousands of people responded. And I was like, okay, well, this park's capacity is only 100. But yeah, we're going to start it this week and just see how it goes. I'm going to start doing workshops and things. And then I'll weave in, messaging of sustainability and self care. But I think that's how I want to show up right now, is providing these like third spaces for people to go to. Because I think we all understand the reality of what's going on and really need to just be in community with one another. I also have a lot of friends that are doing that too. So, Evelyn, who's incredible, she started an organization called Hike Club that just gets, women outside hiking together. And I feel like that's kind of the activism world that I'm maybe trying to be a part of right now, of just self care and community care. And then, yeah, spaces for grief as well. Like I hosted an event where there was like a sound bath and then we all got to talk. It was actually a week after the election. So again, going in the garden, it was called Grounding in the Garden. And I feel like that's what I have to offer right now.
I mean, that's more than enough. That's beautiful. I love the idea of crafting community. As a fellow crafter and lover of crafts, like I think that's such a beautiful way to really get like get out of your head and into something. The process of making something beautiful from like your mind, but also like functional. Like right now, I'm like drinking a mug made by my friend, and like I just feel so connected to her. But this idea of like being community together is like a great way of using activism. A lot of times, like right now, the foundation has a campaign for like joy being your act of resistance. Because after those terrible, terrible results in November, we kind of just had the moment of just like, what are we gonna do? Like what are we truly gonna do? In the sense of like, to your point, as Black people, as African American people, there's always been some type of like obstacle or some type of like force that's trying to block our joy, trying to block our like hope, trying to block like our whenever we get together, they want to stop it, like really forces that want to keep you as down possible. And environment injustice is just another, like you said, oppressive way of doing that. And so making sure we're finding ways to be in community and lift each other up and also say that like we can rely on each other. Like this idea of like communal living and like sharing expenses and sharing like resources is really like something that like I've been seeing and like trying to create within my own friend groups really, and like just finding different ways to be sustainable while like like maintaining your joy and mental health. So like, do you have any like tangible actions of like sustainability that you practice and like that you do with people or do with yourself?
Yeah. So, and I guess going off what we said last time, I'm starting to say self sustainability. I know I like making up words, but
Wait, I want a
you
whole
know,
dictionary.
love a word. But yeah, if we're talking about planetary or the planet sustainability, I think self sustainability, community sustainability are also really important. I think personally, when it comes to like what I'm doing, I'm trying to support local like agriculture. So whether it's getting like a farm box, going to the farmer's market, like knowing what community gardens are around me. Again, I feel really empowered when I learn how to make things myself because it's also the more sustainable option. Like you can make jam out of like a glass of, juice or like a couple glasses and you have jam for the year if that's what you want to do. If you learn how to can. Learning how to make bread. I made my own bagels. I made beet bagels for no reason. I don't know why those were the first bagels I made. Like, they were actually good.
Okay.
They were actually good. Right? I should have made an everything bagel. I don't know why I did that. But it just feels really empowering. So I would tell people like learn how to mend as well. Like I took sewing classes earlier this year. Um, and it's just you then are more sustainable because if you're like, oh, I just ran out of lip balm and then you make it because you happen to have, beeswax or whatever it is, cocoa butter at your house, you can just make it. And then ultimately you're not really buying as much. So if you're participating in a boycott, for example, of like a big box store, but then
Which
you
one?
realize like, oh, I actually have everything I need to make candles, lip balm, soap, bread, blah, blah. It just makes life a lot easier. It's empowering and more sustainable.
And more affordable too, because
Yeah.
spending $40 on like skincare or makeup, that is not sustainable. That is not something I think keep doing or want to do. um, I did some research and I heard that your mom works in the mental health space. Um, how was that, like, growing up, and, like, how did that impact how you practice your mental health and, like, what you do to protect it?
That's a great question. I would say I love her so much, but it's almost like, how do I say this? Like, because she is, sorry, I'm like burning on. She works in the mental health space by trade.
Mm,
And in our relationship, I would say that I don't know if how much it influenced
yeah,
our mother-daughter relationship, because I think, she experienced so much, like, trauma that people were experiencing, so then
yeah,
my problems were like, "Oh, you like a boy? Like, like, you're fine." Like, I don't know, so
traumatical.
yeah, she's great, but she's still, a Black mom, so I would say that, but as I've gotten older, I think now that we have more of, like, a friendship type relationship and can talk a lot more candidly, because for a second there, we were like a no Harry Potter household, like, we were like a set, like, we were in, and that would be a great podcast episode, but being,
Talk about it.
yeah, like, deeply intertwined in the Black church, like, mental health isn't always something, like, it was almost considered demonic if you were experiencing depression, like, I think I
Yeah,
heard that verbatim from my
get
church.
the devil out of you. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
like, it's not the devil's depression. I don't want him either.
Like, hold on. So, I feel like that added nuance, and now that my parents, embrace Harry Potter and not J.K. Rowling, but we
Oh,
embrace,
like,
never that. But we're okay with those sorts of things now. We can have more honest and candid conversations about it, and, like, even I speak openly and transparently of, like, "Mom, why didn't you know I had OCD? Like, I would wait for the mailman to come every day at 4 o'clock, and if he didn't come, I thought the world was ending. Like, why why was that
oh,
never." Yes. But we talk about it now, and it's nice.
no, I think there's something, like, nice about, like, being able to, like, heal past, like, relationships and, like, see how things can change and evolve. I think, like, one thing as, like, I'm getting older, I'm realizing I don't know, I just keep thinking about time, I just am always thinking about time and, like, how limited it is and what am I doing with my time, and I could get to existential spiral if I keep talking about time, but, like, this idea of, like, we're always constantly evolving and changing and just trying to make sure that I'm going in the right direction of how I evolve and change just because that's just how time is. But being able to have those conversations with your parents and like, I'm so happy you're able to like watch Harry Potter now. I feel like that's gonna be so like exciting and like so fun. But like just in the way of like how we're able to like use time and like build our toolbox of how we take care of ourselves and like how we communicate with other people and how we communicate to ourselves like you said like self-sustainability like I'm in the business of self-care and how we talk to ourselves like really this idea of like being graceful with yourself and like past versions of yourself. I think a lot of times like there's this like bit of like guilt if like we're not doing enough to protect the environment like oh I didn't recycle this or do I compost it? Like whenever I'm like at the like food like corner and like this like compost recycle landfill, I'll be like there for a second, just like what do I do? And like hoping I make the right decision. But like this idea of like how are you able to like give yourself grace as you're just learning to be like more self sustainable?
I I don't know, I feel like it's a practice maybe, but it's just there, like, I really think after studying environmental science and, sociology and just seeing so many systems that, again, we are really, for the most part, not responsible for. I
Mhm.
think that allows me to have grace, and never excuses, but also understanding, like, okay, we're existing in these imperfect systems, and I think for my mental health, I can't, because I remember just how depressed I was during the Ferguson uprisings, and I got to a place of extreme apathy and not wanting to do anything at all. So I'm like, I can't get to that place, and I'll get to that place if I'm like, "Oh my god, I used plastic today," or "I did this," or "I did that," or "I did that." So it's really just, taking my time with it, and then also educating my community online, like, that I'm not with it. So, like, don't
Yeah.
comment some of that stuff on my page because I'm not, you'll probably be blocked, so, like, protecting my peace as much as possible. I think accountability is one thing, but if somebody's like, "Oh my god, you had a plastic fork," like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my bad.
I'm sorry.
I had to. I
Try
do.
not to, but yeah.
I really try. I love the wooden forks Chipotle gives out. Like
Mhm.
fan. I think they're great.
Those are great.
But one thing I'm noticing in my conversation with you and also just, like, how goofy you are, and, like, I mean that in the most, like, heartfelt way. Like, I was like
Yeah, I try.
but, like, I love how you're just able to incorporate so much joy and fun into, like, what you do, and, like, it really seems so authentic to who you are and, like, how bringing your like, that joy, because like, so many times, like, there's, like, this sense of, like, dread and, like, this sense of, like, doom and, like you said, like, apathy of just, like, what's the point, you know? And
Mhm,
I think, like, finding ways to, like, focus on that, like, keep that fun, keep that goofy energy, keep that, like,
mhm.
lightness to it is truly the key. Like, I'm learning that and, like, I thought I had to be the serious adult. Like, you know, like, I'm just, like, I'm about to enter, like, my 30s, so I'm just like, "How does a 30-year-old act?" You know, "How can I be more serious? How can I be more" and it's just like,
Mhm.
I just wanna have fun. Like, I just wanna
Yeah.
make sure that, like, me and my people and, like, my community, that we're having fun. So, like, how do you incorporate that fun, and how do you keep that sense of goofiness to you, like, alive?
I feel like I'm showing it to people a little bit more, but it's always been
Doing it.
there, you know? Like, even with my book, like, it shouldn't be funny, but to me, it's funny. Like, the book title is, How to Dismantle Systems of Oppression, and then I put a rainbow on it and made it, like, really colorful, like and it's, like, because it makes me laugh, or if I was like, "Okay, if we're making a magazine about environmental justice," I called it the IE Agenda to poke fun of people saying the gay agenda, and I made it, like, an early 2000s magazine because I was like, "It's funny." Um,
Yeah.
or And, yeah, this summer, I had this idea. There's like a garden that I really love in Pasadena that I wanna make a fundraiser for, and I'm like, "Well, I love jam and I love jams, so I'm gonna do the first annual Jam and Jams festival." Like, I don't know, like, there's just like, I have to, like, it keeps it fun. So, yeah.
Sorry. I love
Mhm.
fun, and I love
Yeah.
alliteration. Um,
Keep it going. So, yeah.
that's
Mhm.
good. I would love to go to Jammin' Jammin'. I would love to be
Yeah.
jamming with you.
Pasadena.
You talk a lot about the power of, like, individual action, and it's interesting 'cause we see it a lot at the foundation as well, like, people think that, like, we get most of our funding from, like, these big corporate sponsors or, like, we get and
Mhm.
it's, like, just not the case, like, a majority of our funding comes from, like, individuals giving $5 every month, and, like, I don't think people realize how much the impact a single person can make, and especially when that single person brings their community in with them. I
Yeah.
think it has, like, a bigger, like, heart to it almost of just, like it's like a person to person, like, I see this need, I wanna help
Mhm.
this need, I wanna be there for other women who are, like, struggling with their mental health, struggling with this, and, like, this idea of just, like, how environmental action is both important, like, environmental and community care. So, like, I just wanna say, like, thank you for, like, how you show up in that way and also, like, how you are able to bring community together, like, it's really inspiring and beautiful to see, like, I was, like, on your page and just, like also, sorry, I love the gifting guides you create, like, there's
Thank you.
no, if anyone's listening, like, please, like, check out Leah's gifting guides, there's perfect they're, like, the best way of, like, how to, like, show up and can show up for people and, like, give them a little bit of love, but, yeah, I just really saw the synergy between, like, the individual action between community and, like, how we do in the mental space, but also in, like, the environmental thing, and I think that's the beauty of, like, intersectionalities that so many things overlap that you could be doing something for one thing or one cause, and it's also helping another cause, so just want to call that out.
Thank you.
Okay. I know we're almost wrapping up, but there's a couple more questions. I wanted to do like this little activity with you. I saw you talking about radical imagination, and I
Mhm.
got so excited because I love daydreaming. I love imagining
Mhm.
things. I love just like my favorite like way to like regulate my nervous system when I'm getting overwhelmed is to sit outside and just close my eyes and just daydream and like create a new world and like really just like like take escapism to like the 100%. But I want
Mhm.
to do like a radical imagination of like if you're, like, imagining, like, a healed future for, like, the planet, for the people, like, what does it look like? And, like, feel
Mm.
weird as you want or, like, as imaginative as you want, but I just want to, like, do that with you.
That's a great question. I think in the future, everyone would just inherently understand their relationship with the earth, like, and spend time outside. I love nature schools where kids get to like learn in nature and like climb trees, and you still have classes, but you're spending a lot of your time outside. And then I don't think this should be radical, which is why I don't really consider myself an activist. So, like, I think everybody should have clean air, clean water, and a safe and healthy living environment. But that's not the case. And apparently it's radical, but that's exactly what I want in that future, which I feel like is not asking for too much. So, yeah, we'll keep fighting for that. And then if we got weird with it, solar power, everything's run on
Ooh.
solar power.
Yeah, I feel like the sun's right there. Let's use more of it. Like, let's like
Let it heat
charge,
stuff up. Like, charge it
charge,
up.
please. Something we're asking everyone on the show is, where do you find your joy, and what does that look like for you on a daily basis?
I have really goofy friends, I
Oh,
would say. So that's where I find my joy, just with them. They keep me really grounded as well. And I think people should try to find that, like goofy friends. Like when I learned that people have friends that they don't laugh with, I
is it?
was like, What is friendship for?" So, I mean, it's really I don't know, like, people need more laughs in their life, I think. So, yeah, and I also just do things that have nothing to do with environmentalism. I watch shows that are, have nothing to do with environmentalism, whether it's like Schitt's Creek or, even The Real Housewives every now and again, just to like turn my brain off.
No, I shout out to the goofy friends that hold us down. Like, really, you're doing Lord's work. Um, well, Leah, I want people to know where they can find you, how they can support you, how they can just connect with you. So, where can they go to support you and find you?
People can find me on Instagram at Green Girl Leah, TikTok, Green Girls World. My website is leahthomas.com. And if you're curious about the crafting club, it's greengirlcrafts.com.
Oh, beautiful. I can't wait for Jam and Jams.
Jam and Jams,
Yeah,
July 2025.
plug it in. But no, thank you so much. It's been wonderful talking with you. I can't wait to hopefully connect with you in the future. July, I'm gonna mark my calendar. I might make a trip down to Pasadena for that. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us for a very special episode of The Unfolding, presented by the Loveland Foundation. At the Loveland Foundation, we are committed to showing up for communities of color in unique and powerful ways, with a particular focus on Black women and girls. Our resources and initiatives are collaborative, and they prioritize opportunity, access, validation, and healing. Since our founding, the Therapy Fund has provided financial support for therapy to over 13,000 Black women, girls, and non-binary individuals across the country. This year, our goal is to provide free therapy to at least 6,000 more. If you'd like to join us and invest in generational change, visit our website at thelovelandfoundation.org for ways to give. To stay updated on new episodes and any future programming, follow us on Instagram and Meta, or check out our website at thelovelandfoundation.org.